So my name is Rhonda Sewell,
Uh-huh.
and I live in Sylvania, Ohio, which is right outside of Toledo, Ohio. And I am the proud mom, single professional mom of twin daughters who will be 21 in just a couple of months.
Crazy.
So, and I believe I was nominated for the Rising Phoenix Awards from Mr. David Bush,
True.
my nominator. At least he shared a little bit of how I am very intentional about connecting people.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't do it for any kind of accolades, but I connect people, and I think that that is my gift
Yeah.
in life. It comes very natural to me. When I talk to someone, I will say, oh yeah, you should meet, have you met so-and-so? Because it's almost like putting a puzzle together.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, I didn't even know that person existed. They could really help me in my business or in my life or whatever it may be. And then I connect them, and then I walk away. And that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah,
So,
you are a community builder in that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a self-described servant leader.
Okay.
So and you know, that can be an overused term, but I like it. And maybe my definition of it doesn't fit the philosophical definition of servant leadership, but I feel that I am a leader. I do have some influence on people, and I might as well do it in a way that honors who I am as a person, my faith, and my belief system, and just try to do some good in the world, you know. And so, and it humbles me. That word servant kind of humbles me a little bit. So I think that that is why I was nominated, because of my ability to connect people and my ability to dive really deep into community.
Yep, I think that's true. And most of us don't come out of the womb that way, right? So there's an element of genetics involved. This is kind of who you are, and it's how you're wired, and it's part of what you've learned along the way. So let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
The Rising Phoenix Awards, it's all about people who have been through really hard things, and they've overcome these things and risen from the ashes. And in the course of that rising from the ashes, they were transformed and became something more authentic. And then they chose to do something to help others. Is there a part of your story that talks to the hardships that you've been through earlier in life that got you on this path?
So my upbringing was a wonderful experience. I'm an only child.
Nice.
And of my biological parents. And so it was, you know, I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s. My mom talked about, I'm really into African American literature, so my mom would talk about James Baldwin, the legendary writer, coming to BG all the time. He even has a room named after him. And me sitting on her lap watching James Baldwin, which just blows my mind. Of course, I don't remember that.
Right.
But my parents were always, you know, they had books around and literature and kept me involved in the community. And I just had a really great upbringing in childhood. And as a newspaper reporter, I always envisioned sort of this, you know, by the age of 35, I'll be this, and I'll be married, and I'll have these kids, and that just did not happen for me. And I was even considering adoption because I did grow up with a foster brother.
Okay.
And so none of that happened for me. I never found my soulmate at all, and was in a relationship and found myself pregnant with twins.
Oh boy.
And I'm not married, I'm a professional, I'm a community leader. Oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
And you know, shame just hit me. And then you know, just going very, very deep, I just said, you know what? This is a gift. And I talked to my parents about it, and I'm like, I'm going to have these twins. I feel almost obligated, like, you know, just really convicted to carry this forth and deal with whatever societal drama or pressure that I was like, I'm just going to be Murphy Brown in the news, in the newspaper world,
Right.
And I was so surprised at the reaction. It was not what I expected. I expected, for some reason, judgment. Because I know how cruel the world can be
Yep.
when you deviate at all from the norm. And it was just the opposite. People were supportive and all of that. And I got to my about 5.5 months, and all of a sudden I was spotting, and I felt that was not normal. So called my doctor and said, I'm spotting, but I'm moving today, and I probably overexerted myself a little bit.
Yep.
And she said, why don't you just come in? Well, I had already dilated 2 centimeters,
Oh, man.
which was a no-no. So I had to have a cerclage, which is the stitching of my cervix, to hold the babies in and go on immediate bed rest and
Okay.
do nothing.
Oh, man.
So that's what I did. And then one day at about 24 weeks, oh no, not even 24 weeks, it was about 22 weeks, my water broke.
Oh, wow.
And I did know I was having fraternal twins, but my water broke in one sac. Later we would find out. So rushed to the hospital. I knew when your water breaks, you produce a child. And I knew I was too early. So in my mind, I had already lost my twins, and it was devastating, And so was in the hospital, and the nurses were so kind and, just being very gentle with me and not really saying much. And I'm like, oh, they don't want to let me down
Right.
to tell me that I've lost my twins. At the time, their dad and I, who maintain a great relationship, we co-parent. He's wonderful. He's from Columbus, and he's a wonderful dad. My girls are very close to their father. I could not ask for a better dad. But we just knew that our relationship wouldn't, advance.
Sure.
And so he was really scared. I was scared. Our families were scared.
Yeah.
And I remember the nurse coming in, like, gleeful, saying, we still hear 2 heartbeats. And I kind of sat up in the bed and said, how is that possible? My water broke. And when I mean my water broke, my water broke. And she said, no, you're just gonna stay here. This is gonna be your new home. And I was thinking to myself, thank God for good insurance.
Right.
Because
Right.
like, I'm only 22 some weeks. Like, there's no way I can stay until 39 weeks. And they're like, well, right now you're just going to stay here. So I did. That's what I did.
Wow.
And then it was just every day and meeting with the staff and, going through the motions and not moving, just not moving. And then one day, I was 23 weeks and 3 days, developed a fever, high fever, and it ended up being preeclampsia. And I developed gestational hypertension during that time. So my blood pressure went through the roof at almost stroke level. So they had to induce, they had to make a decision to just, and I knew at 23 weeks, that's not even 6 months.
Right.
There's just no viability there. And so they rolled me in, and the first baby came out breech. She came out backwards. And so I'm like, oh gosh, what is going on? But
what next, right?
she was viable and looked healthy, just really tiny.
Yeah.
And my daughters were actually born weighing only 1 pound.
Wow.
Each 1 pound 4 ounces and 1 pound 3 ounces.
Wow.
And they were as long as a ruler, 12 inches long. One was 12 and a quarter. But just to think of how small that is, it's literally, I could hold both of them just like this, like little birds, And I'm kind of getting, reliving it, but Then my second daughter took a while, about 22 minutes, and then she came out in her sack.
Wow.
Still. And one of the nurses said, I've never seen that, but I've heard of it. She goes, I've worked for 16 years at Toledo Hospital, and I've never seen that happen, but I've heard it happening. And so there was no baby. There was just a blob there, a sack, a ball. And so there, it was like a Freddy Krueger movie. They're like, with the scalpel,
right.
And then this baby emerges, all the amniotic fluid everywhere. And I'm just like freaking out because it's already a traumatic experience for me. This is trauma in the hospital.
Wow.
And this little baby emerges at 23 weeks and 3 days with her eyes opened, which is unheard of because usually babies' eyes are fused at that early of a gestational age. And hers just opened up and she just looked at me. And it was as if it's going to be just fine.
It's going to be all right, Mama.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is deep. This is really traumatic. And I was just kind of like delivered them and they, got me all together and I went back into my room and the delivery doctor, my OBGYN, actually my OBGYN was in Guatemala doing some great work over there with women and maternity care and things of that sort. And she actually called me and said, what are you doing? This is too early to be delivering. And I'm like, I just delivered them. I don't know what I'm doing. And so my doctor, Dr. Renee Mason, came in and this is so interesting. She just whispered in my ear. She said, Rhonda, just be calm. And she said, just keep the faith. She said, I want to tell you something. She said to me, we don't know why in the medical world, but little black girls who are born at a low gestational weight have a higher incidence of survival. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, but something clicked. And I said, that's like all the ancestors taking care of me. That's like all the women who took care of other people's children and were in the cotton fields and all the women that, just were demeaned and all of that in the African American community fighting to survive. Like I took this really probably way deeper than I should have, but it was a survival technique for me and probably my maternal instincts kicking in saying, I have to emotionally fight for those little girls to make it 24 hours. Like, just because they were delivered doesn't mean they're going to make it through the night.
Right.
And the neonatologist actually asked me said, if you are a person of faith, you probably should call your pastor or your minister or whomever, you worship with, to come in and pray with you. And, I took all that in, but at the same time, there was a sense of calm after she told me that medical fact.
Right.
I don't know. Still, I grapple with where did that come from? Why did that resonate? Why did that trigger me so into this level of calm and confidence that my Creator had a task for me to do. I did it, and whatever is His will.
Yeah.
That is really what happened. And I'm not trying to diminish the trauma that still happened with them struggling every day in the NICU with their lives, but I always had that to hold on to, and I fought I fought so hard. And during my time, the hospital lost a mother. She bled out and was able to hold her baby. And I witnessed a couple whose baby did not make it. And they got to hold him and take a picture with him and pray over him and things of that sort. And so it was, I was like dead woman walking during this whole time. But there was some type of, I don't know if it was a calm. There was something there that kept me. And I attribute it, number one, to hearing that story and that fact and leaning on the ancestors, but I also attribute it to my faith.
Sure.
That is what, and I didn't realize before this traumatic medical experience that I had the type of unshakable faith that my grandmothers had or my great-grandmothers had. They really knew that in the morning it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And as a young woman of, I think, 33 at the time, I didn't think that. I would panic about things like, oh my God, this is the end of the world, you know.
Well, even if you could think it, right? Yes. Having it in your head and having it in your heart are two very, very different things.
Very different.
Yep.
Very different. And so I just kept that strength because I knew I had to fight. I had to fight for dignity. I had to fight for, I remember literally getting into a shouting match with a neonatologist over an experimental drug that he thought would be good and I read up on it. You know, I'm no doctor, but I read up on it, and I have some doctor friends, and they're like, you know, you might want to read these articles because it's not so great. So I fought for what I thought was right. And later, the neonatologist said, if only every patient was like you or had advocates like you.
Yeah.
Because even though he did not agree, he respected how well read I was on the subject and that I wasn't just, you know, giving him a hard time, that I was fighting for my daughters.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably, well, I know it is. It's not probably. I know it's really one of the most traumatic incidents that I've had to go through. I did a couple of years ago go through another trauma when it was a Friday night. In fact, we're coming up on the anniversary. I left my workplace and went out to the parking garage, and the director of the library was dead by his car.
Oh, wow.
And so I was the person to find him, call 911, take his pulse, make sure everything was okay. And I just thought, I'm like, God, you placed me here to be the one to not only find him, but to seek help for him. And I prayed with him and thanked him for his journey, thanked him for his contribution to the community, thanked him for building one of the greatest library systems in the nation and in Ohio. Yeah. And I was supposed to be that person.
Yeah.
And it was my training from being a reporter, chasing the ambulances and going on horrible car accidents and things where people died, and we had to deal with that and come back and write it,
right,
and interview the family and things of that sort. I just knew what to do. Obviously I was grieving, but I had a job to do, and I did it. And they said later that I was advising people on what to do, because I said, call his wife, make sure that you don't tell her what happened, just tell her to meet you at the hospital. Like, I knew what to say.
Right.
You know, and tell her there. Like, have the doctors there, have them present. But she might get into an accident on the way if you tell her now.
Right.
You know, and I was just very sensitive to all of that. So those are the two biggest traumas thus far. Because if you keep living, you're gonna, you know, experience
We're all
some
gonna
things.
get those things,
we're all
yeah.
gonna get those things. But how you deal with them and how you emerge, as you say, you know, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, is really the testament, is really the beauty of going through maybe darkness and emerging into light. And those two things, those two incidents, traumatic kind of medical incidents, really changed me to a more confident person. I've found my voice, and I believe that even through your darkest times, your faith component, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what you believe, but whatever it is, that there's something bigger than you, and that there is a master plan to the universe.
Yeah.
There is a master plan.
Yep.
And that your life really does matter. And you can influence other people. I share my story all the time with people will call me and say, oh my gosh, my relative is going through the same thing, and their twins were born at 20 some weeks and they're devastated. Can you talk to them? And I'm like, well, is the mom open to me talking? Of course I will, you know. And I just try to put myself out there because I walked that journey. And I know exactly what they're feeling and exactly what they're going through. And I guess I have a different perspective about loss and death. Of course we miss them, but I wanted to honor him in that moment. I knew that his soul was in that parking garage, you know, trying to make the transition to whatever other side. And I wanted to just be there to honor while we waited for the ambulance. And here I am, and I'm calling everyone that needed to be called, all of our administrative, you know, staff and our media specialists, because this was big news.
You were there for a reason.
I was there for a reason.
Part because you knew what to do, and part because you could help him make that transition.
I was. And it wasn't until I visited like a church. I have a home church, but I visited a church, and they asked if people would like prayer afterwards, and I usually never go up. I'm like, my prayer game is strong, right? I don't need to go up. I needed to go up that day, and I did. And she said that I was kind of blaming myself for not being the person to walk my director out. We always walked out together because we always worked so late, and we always talked about the news, like, are you going to be watching the news, the politics and everything? And he's like, he would always say, Rhonda, get your popcorn out. It's going to be a doozy, you know. And we would just have those fun little conversations. See you tomorrow, or we'd, you know, stand in front of the car and have a meeting after the meeting, you know, and talk. And he left before me that day, and it was a Friday, and I'm thinking he's just got to go, you know, pick his grandkids up or something like that. So I didn't think anything about it. But after, I did feel some guilt that, not that I could have done anything. I think the security camera said that there was a 12-minute difference between when he left and then when I left. Right. And I was, you know, kind of waking up in night sweats thinking, I could have gotten, and he could be alive today. You know, I was just blaming myself. And when I went up to the person for prayer, she just said, you know what? She said, you know, she prayed for him and his family and his survivors, but she said, it was not your turn to walk him out. Yeah. She said, his creator, it was his turn to walk him out. And when she said that, you talk about a buildup of tears. I just let it all out. And it was a beautiful release.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to hear that to say, yes, that's it. And it's always the beauty of the two experiences is that it was someone else coming to me, kind of rationalizing. Because my mind was too, fixated on the trauma to really explain my circumstances.
Right.
And it was these two angels coming to me saying, did you know this? And guess what? It wasn't your turn. For me to go, wow, it wasn't my turn.
Mm-mm.
And it was a release. It was a release. And I think it was just a deeper level of understanding. It wasn't so much, oh, I'm now off the hook. It wasn't that at all. It was a deeper understanding of life that they placed into my heart, and then I just got it after that. And I'm like, wow. I'm drained, from the emotion. I had the best nap after church service. I even skipped brunch and everything. I just went right and got into the fetal position and just slept for a long time. But, those experiences are gifts.
They are. And if you'll allow me to, I think you were given two really powerful gifts. And the gift that they gave you was hope.
Yeah.
They gave you hope. Both of them said the right thing at the right time, and it gave you hope, it gave you inspiration, and it allowed you to release.
Right.
But what I find really important in your story is that you give other people hope too.
Yeah.
So as other people are going through something similar to your challenge with your kids, right? You tell them your story. You show them that it can work out okay. You're passing that hope along, and that's the light that we all need. And that's the light that people will get when they listen to your story.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But the other part of this, which is really important for us, I think, all, is resources, right? We talked about you need hope, inspiration, community, and resources. The resources part came, if you think about the doctor that told you made this decision, and it was an informed decision, you had knowledge, you had people advising you, because you had access to resources. And now you're connecting people together in community. When they need help, you're helping them find a person that can help them. You're giving them the resources. So I see in you this bright light that you're taking these gifts that you've been given and you're passing them along to other people, and I love it.
Oh, thank you. It's I used to shun it, and say, oh no, that's just me. It's not a big deal. But now I see the power in that connection. People need the hope. I mean, they need the resources. They need the community.
Yeah.
In order to connect those dots.
Yeah.
And I feel, again, my one really good friend, she is so wonderful. She always says, Rhonda, that's your superpower.
Yeah.
And I tell her, I think it is. I
Yeah.
think that might be my superpower.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can you think of an example of a connection that you made that makes you feel really good? You connected this person to this person and it turned into this
God.
wonderful thing.
There's so many, actually, and which is really makes me proud to
Yeah.
know. A lot of it has been people coming to me for professional development. Younger people are really attracted to me, and they come to me and say, Miss Rhonda, how did you do it? I admire what you're doing. How did you do it? And there's a young lady in my community that didn't have a job but had all this talent in graphic design. And I said, I sit on the board with someone who makes those decisions, and I think you all need to just connect. And she's like, well, he's the decision maker. Like, is there someone under him maybe that I can go to? I'm like, why?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's the one that needs to see your talent.
Yep.
And there's numerous examples like that. That young lady got hired on the spot. She did a lot of the graphics that you see in the steam plant at ProMedica.
Okay.
So she has a great job. There's a young lady that came to me about a position at the library, and I knew that she would be a bright spot, a future emerging leader. in our midst, and I arranged for her and our director to have coffee. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, she's amazing." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yep, I told you so."
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those types of connections that I've made that, they always say, if I, like, you really, really, like, I have you to thank for where I am today. And I don't see it that way, but I do see it as I got you up to the door.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all people need. And then their talent will shine through. And then they are the ones that cross the threshold on their own.
Yeah.
But I get them to the door.
Creating the opportunity.
Yep, I get them to the door. And so there's numerous, examples just like that I've done all throughout the city. And, it's almost laughable now when new people come into the city. They'll say, "I was told to talk to you." Like I'm the ambassador.
Go see the Oracle.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In fact, one guy calls me that. He calls me that in Toledo, the Oracle.
Yep. I love that.
But I don't, because I just say it's because I'm a dinosaur. I've been there forever. But it is because I love that connecting of people. I just find people so interesting.
Yeah.
And and they have gifts.
Yep.
They have gifts, and sometimes the two gifts need to interact and collide so that more hope can emerge. So,
You're a gift to the community. Let's talk about the library for a minute.
Okay.
Because we talk about how important it is for people to have access to resources. The Toledo library system is really good.
Yeah.
It's not really good by accident. People put a lot of time and energy into making it what it is. And I think that's a part of what you do. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do for the library system in Toledo?
Sure. So my proper title is I'm a manager of external and governmental affairs.
Okay.
So the external part is just really about community initiatives and partnerships, having a seat at the table, making sure that the library's mission, our core values, our strategic priorities are elevated and with other anchor institutions. So that's the external part. The governmental affairs part is sort of a new role for the library system and library systems across the nation. Internally, most library systems always have like a lobbying law firm that they've retained, or the prosecutor's office, they'll call them for advice on some legal matter or legal counsel. They've never had an internal person that was an advocate on behalf of the system for whatever their funding source is. And in Ohio, there is a earmark called the Public Library Fund that's a percentage of the general revenue fund. So the state provides a lot of resources. And in my case, with my library system, which is a county system, it provides nearly half of our budget. And we're well over $40 million budget, about $42 million.
Okay.
And so that's significant.
Yes, it is.
And then the other half of that money comes from a levy that we place on the ballot every 5 years. So in order to pass a levy, people need to see value. There has to be public value there. So that side of my job requires me to advocate and educate legislators who are deciding those votes in the Senate and the House of the General Assembly to understand why we exist, our relevancy, who we are, what we stand for, and how much we help community.
Yeah.
And they are always blown away by the things that libraries do. We are well past just being about books now. I mean, we are such a community resource. We almost say, and we use this tagline, that we are the community's gift to itself.
Yeah.
And it's so true with public libraries. When I was a reporter for 18 years at the local paper in Toledo, The Blade, I utilized the library system for research, for stories, never, ever in a million years did I know the extent and the reach that the public library system has now. Whatever I do in life, I will always be a public library champion.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I do for the library. It's a lot of legislative stewardship. It's a lot of educating them on our programming, our offerings, and also our funding structure, because sometimes legislators don't even know how we're funded.
Right.
You know, they may think that the levy, you know, is the full extent of it. And especially when you have freshman legislators, like they just don't know.
Right.
And so you have to, a lot of my job is educating them, getting them inside our building as well to really see the majesty of what we do. It is really important. So I am, you know, I'm naturally a community connector, but in my job I really get to make those connections. And so it aligns, my position aligns with who I am and what I do. And the beauty of my position, it is a never before, you know, we've never had a position like that at our library. And my late director, he's the one that saw something in me and named me to this position.
Wow.
So another gift,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like I need to honor him and do a really good job at it. But I think he saw that I was already an advocate. I was sort of a community ambassador of the library. People would come to me if they associated me with the library.
Yeah.
And so that was really great. And he saw that skill that I had. And as a reporter, the legislators that were in the General Assembly and that are there, I knew them well before they even got into politics, because I was writing about them before they even were public servants.
Yep.
So we have a long-standing, credible, reputable, friendly relationship that I can literally pick up the phone and get Senator so-and-so on the line, or I have the, you know, the home number of Representative so-and-so.
Yeah.
There's a mutual respect there.
Yeah.
And with any organization, you want someone like that who has the community's trust.
Sure.
And so I think my position currently really aligns with who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are an advocate or a champion
Yep.
that goes off and finds the resources that a resource like the library needs to give the community the resources it needs to be healthy, happy, whole community.
That's right. That's right.
That's
and it's,
pretty deep.
Yeah. No, it is. It's
Yeah.
it's a loaded title, in my opinion, and we have a new director now, and I'm grateful. He was the deputy director at the time of our late director's death, but I'm so glad that our new director understands the importance of that role, wants to continue it, wants to give me all of the, you know, resources that I need to really be that champion, that defender also. I call myself a defender of public libraries because I'm always sharing with legislators, you know, did you know?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, no, we did not know that. Are you serious? Really?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
I know. And along that line, would you humor me with something?
Yes.
Let's say there's somebody listening to this interview,
Okay.
and they don't know what the library system does. They don't know why the library still exists. They don't know why in this digital information age we need libraries. And they're a funder. They're somebody who's got resources and they want to apply it to help the community. What's the elevator pitch for the library system in today's age that you would give these people to help them understand?
I would simply tell them something that I heard Alex Haley, the great late author of Roots, say. He spent some time in a library and he said, if you ever want to know about your community, just sit for a day or an afternoon at your public library, because the public library is a mirror reflection of the community. So whatever social ills are out there, whatever is going on politically, whatever is the joy or pride of the community, you will see it reflected in the library system. And we are one of the most democratic of all institutions. You can look back on Carnegie, right? The philanthropist who built so many libraries in our country. And his big pitch was, we are open to all. And that's it. We don't care if you have housing insecurities, and we don't care if you're the wealthiest donor in your community. We welcome all and everyone. Public libraries exist to make sure that everyone has the same access to information. We are still the greatest information resource. You see memes all over talking about how librarians were the original Google. It's true.
Yeah.
They were. And so that's why we exist, to make sure that we are available, accessible, to get the information that you need. And part of our mission at the Toledo Lucas County Public Library is to make sure people are successful in life. We actually put the word success, and you can define that in any way. It doesn't mean you drive around in a fancy car. It just means we want to help you succeed. We want you to go to our workforce development and get that job that you've been trying to get for so long. Get the free help from us. Access our databases if you're a small business person, and know how to write your marketing plan and your business plan. You want a passport to go somewhere? Come to the library. You know, all of these things that you would never think a library does. We are a passport acceptance agency. And so you can come and get your passport. You can get, it's a one-stop shop. You can get your picture taken. We do a lot of healing at the library. We work with animals that come in, support animals and come in, and they just lay there, and we have reading times and story times. Our immigrant and refugee population can come. We have a Welcome Toledo Lucas County where they can come and be the first, we're the first resource for them.
Sure.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. You have to edit that out.
Yeah, we can just chop it.
But, we're a resource for the immigrant refugee population.
Sure.
We are a resource for the formerly incarcerated. We are a resource for so many, for early literacy. We define ourselves as a school outside of the school. So when the day ends at school, children can come into the library and still continue their learning.
Growing and learning and exploring.
Yes, and exploring.
Yeah.
And, and books too. The publishing industry, we always say, is never going to go away. People
Right.
always think, oh my gosh, we have access to digital and all of that. Guess what? The public library has embraced digital.
Yep.
They can coexist together.
Yeah.
If you're the tactile person who loves the books and dog-earing the pages, although that's a no-no, but anyway, dog-earing the pages and things of that sort,
Yeah.
We have the books for you. Publishing industry is doing fine.
Yeah.
Just fine. But also, we are exploding when it comes to being a place where you can download ebooks and those kind of things. And we are addressing digital divide and things that are not right. We call ourselves a center for neutrality, but we do take stances on social ills and strong stances as of late, and I'm so proud of that. What other institution takes a stance on supremacy or those kinds of really controversial hot button issues? We do it. We do it at the library. So we are all of those things for the community.
Okay, so your access to information in
Yes.
traditional and electronic digital format.
Yes.
Your community programs, your community support for social issues. You guys are a lot more than just a place to go to get books.
We really, really are. I mean, I remember we were discussing at one time, do we need to have a barber shop, do you think, in the library? I mean, we were, thinking outside of the box because we have so many young people that come in, and it's just, we even have a gallery so that people can just pause.
Yeah.
Some of our customers, we call them, because they pay for the library through their tax dollars, maybe have never been exposed to art, but they can at the library. And it is a place, they call it one of those like living room institutions, but it is a place where people can hold their head up and have some dignity. People know their name. The librarians will like, hey, how you doing today? And hey, did you get that job? No, I didn't. Well, you come back. Hey, did you know there's a program on Thursday about, the industry that you're looking into? No, okay, I'll come. It's just community.
Love it.
And too many times, especially the pandemic has taught us this, that people live in isolation.
Yes.
And the public library just really is sort of the answer to that. You can feel very special when you walk through the doors. There's no judgment at all. It's a beautiful place.
I can see that.
It's beautiful.
A lot of times I have these discussions and people have never really stitched together the whole story. You see how you were here and you were here and you were here, and you see how all these pieces fit together. And so often in life we just go through, we get through stuff. You get by, you do what you have to do, you sweep it under the rug, whatever it is you have to do. But when you put it all into the context of a bigger thread, it just makes things look so much different sometimes.
There is an author, I love literature, and her name was Gloria Naylor. She was rumored to say, you must be militant about the validity of your story or your truth. And that is one of my favorite quotes, because militant is a pretty strong word. But I understand what she's saying. Know your true north. Know who you are. And don't make excuses for it. Be the person that you are. Tell your story, good, bad, and ugly. Tell it. Let you learn from it, and allow other people to learn from it. But be bold about it. And I just love. Everyone's like, "What's your favorite quote?" And I always be militant about the validity of your story or your truth. And I just love that, and that's how I try to. Walk this earth. That's how I try to do it. My friend, the one I talked about before, she's one of my best friends. She's like, all of us have a lot of junk in our trunk. When she says that, we have a lot of junk in our trunk, and that's okay. That makes us who we are, and how we learn. To be those people who can emit hope. And emit, resources and become community with others. We do that because we've learned how to do that. Through our journey. I always say through your walk on this earth. We're just walking. We're walking and learning along our path. I always tell this to especially younger people that I'm mentoring or giving some consultation to them on their professional development along the way. I always like to tell people to cut themselves some slack, to not be so hard on themselves. I see that a lot. And there are people who write about this, who do TED Talks about this, but I see it in my own daily journey that people are really hard, and all of us make mistakes, and we learn from it, and that's okay, and maybe if I had not been through those traumatic experiences in my life, I wouldn't be saying this with such confidence.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because I was on the other side,
Yeah.
saying, you know, oh God, I'm embarrassed, or I'm this, or whatever. But I give myself a lot of grace, and I tell others to do that with people. To not be so judgmental. We don't know everyone's stories. We don't know their motivation. We don't know their triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's this whole kindness movement, but it's real for me. It's real for me. It doesn't cost you anything to be just nice to someone,
Yeah.
or kind, or non-judgmental.
Yeah.
I serve on the prison ministry with my church.
Okay.
And I think it's out of that motivation of my belief in, I don't want to know what you did. I'm not the one that's going to be judging you.
Right.
I just want to be of assistance and be the servant leader that I am,
Mm-hmm.
and the connector. And I want you to connect with your children at home.
Yeah.
You're serving your time. You're doing whatever. I don't know if you're being reformed or not, but I care about you. Maybe reading to your children or visiting with them in some way, even in a digital way.
Yeah.
So I think that's just what I would like to express to others as we all try to rise in our daily lives. To there's almost an answer to everything, and even if you're in a rut, you can get out of it with all the things that this program expresses. You can get out of it with resources, with community support, you know, with hope, with intention, and draw upon that. It may take time, but don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so judgmental on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. It's okay. If you made a mistake, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the thing that I would like to say. It was on my heart to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, let's just give everybody grace, but let's give ourselves grace first.
Absolutely.